Gosh, 15 minutes. Okay, we'll try and do our very best to get the questions in. Just want to do a brief introduction. My name is Babita Sharma. I'm from BBC World News. I'm in a different business. My job is to deliver impartial, accurate, fair news on a rolling basis. We are a rolling news channel. I hope you watch us. I present a program called Newsday. I have an on-screen husband called Rico Hizon, who is a well-known person in this part of the world, in Singapore. We co-present from London and Singapore with a perspective to reflect the issues that are taking place in this region in particular. It's an exciting place to be, and we market that by having a live business, Asia Business Reports, when we are on air as well. I'm going to be chairing this discussion for the next 15, possibly 20 minutes if I can squeeze it out a little bit. We've got so much to cover. There's some really interesting points. Really like your feedback on the points that we're going to be raising. The hashtag is on your screen there. I will be checking on my iPhone. It's not me being rude because I'm bored of what you're saying, because I will be looking down on my phone. But it'd be great to get some questions through Twitter as well. And I'm also on Twitter, self-publication there, Babita BBC. So please do get in touch with any questions you've got about world news. I'll be more than happy to take them, providing they're complimentary. Right, let's get underway. Thank you very much, Stephen, Jacki, and Sarajit, for your presentations. Gosh, you clearly outlined your strategies and your remit for your particular companies. But I'm quite keen to start off by just asking you, at the moment, in your businesses, in your portfolio for your clients, as in your case, Jacki, what is your key focus in terms of delivering your message to consumers? If you can, be specific for me, but what is the key focus in achieving your goals? Stephen.
For us, you know, there's, I think the management of expectation is very important. You know, we, as I said, have an ever-growing community of extraordinary people from around the world who, you know, stepped up to the plate very early, and they really not just helped us to make this happen, they were absolutely instrumental in helping us to make this happen. And we, you know, we owe them a lot. So, you know, we try and really sort of build that sense of community and understand, you know, what they want from us in the period before they fly. But also to continue, I suppose, to reassure them that we're doing what we said we were going to do in the way that we were going to do it. And
so it's a continuation of that customer experience
absolutely,
from start to finish.
Because I think they've bought two things. I mean, eventually, you know, ultimately they've bought a flight, but in between times they've bought the experience of being the world's first spaceline customers, I guess, you know, and they love the engagement with the project. So, you know, we try to communicate with them in all the, you know, the new and the traditional ways as to how the project is going. We make sure that they see things before anybody else. So when we unveil the spaceship, they're there as guests. And we also promote the sense of community amongst themselves. So there's a closed social networking site for our future astronauts, and they engage with each other. They discover why what they want from their experience, and they're doing business with each other. They go on holiday with each other.
Okay. So I presume the consumer aspect of what you're doing would probably be key. But Sarajit, for you, I mean, you talked about the content and capabilities of your user and the end game of your consumers, but is that the key focus for you at the moment?
Yeah, the focus for financial services is to stimulate growth.
But in terms of getting your message to consumers,
yes, and what we're trying to do is stimulate growth by providing capabilities and an understanding of how the world's connectivity works. And that is really going to be fundamental to the future of the world and how it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. We fundamentally believe that growth is going to come from cross-border international business, and how we position the bank's capability to support those people who are entrepreneurial, to support people who are driving global businesses forward, is where the focus of marketing lies.
Jacki?
So we have two types of customers. If I think about my primary client, which is the brands in which we work with, we like to think about our focus as Yes, and yes, we will do exceptional media planning and buying, which is typically what they're looking for from us. But the and is we will layer on rich consumer insight and custom integrations like what you saw, because we know that works better. We'll measure it, so we know it's working, and we'll optimize in real time in order to drive business outcomes, because that's the ultimate game. So simply put, it's different for every client, obviously,
Sure.
but that's the process.
You all talked about new media. It is the buzzword. There are prolific users of new media, particularly in this part of the world. I'm just wondering if we can get a show of hands of how many of you are using social networking sites, mobile phone interactivity, new media.
That can't be a hand that doesn't go up, right?
I think all of us
So I don't know if people at the front turn round, so we'll probably say about 2/3 of the audience
At
here.
least.
Yeah,
At
and the
least
other ones just aren't
2/3.
raising their hand.
Okay, so when we speak about new media, we're talking about the internet, mobile phone technology, Skype, Twitter, Facebook. It's really changing. I know for news it's changing the landscape and what we do, but I'm presuming it does very much for you. Is it something that you embrace and you are utilizing? Clearly, Jackie, you showed in your presentation that you are, but how do you marry the advantages of new media with the traditional media that you've been using, say, for the past 2 decades? Jackie?
Yeah, so tomorrow Carolyn Everson from Facebook is speaking, and she'll talk a lot about social at the core and how Facebook is viewing that. And clearly there's lots of options for social engagement versus Facebook. But the one thing that I always think about and encourage us to think about with our brands is that in order for the engagement with social to be really rich, typically it ladders up to a much higher aspiration than just the brand itself. And I feel like I'm speaking to a group of people that already know this. But if you look at, what's a good example? A good example is what Secret has done, where they've embraced bullying, teenage bullying as a topic. And so in their social sphere, they're engaging teenage girls around this issue of bullying. And so the conversation is much higher, and they're helping to facilitate that to drive a different level of empowerment.
But there's 2 sides to it, isn't there? It's still unpredictable in terms of how consumers are using it. There are privacy issues that arise. Sarajit, I just want to ask you, because new media, you talked about content and endgame. I keep going back to those points, but they seem to be quite recurrent in your presentation.
Yes, from our perspective, we are really on a journey as far as new media is concerned. As I mentioned in my presentation, that we are subjected to rigorous regulation and checks by the regulator. But what we do is currently we monitor what people are saying about our service, about the way we engage with them. So you're not
actually using it as a platform at the moment?
Yes, we're not using it as a platform to beam out messages and to engage with people, because we believe that we are still not in a position where we can create value by a dialogue.
Do you feel you're missing out then?
Well, I don't think we're missing out. I think we need to be very sensitive to what we say in this space, because people don't like banks telling them things, and it needs to be opt-in. They need to feel that they have reached a stage where they want to be advised by their bank through the social media. They do not want their personal finances to be discussed out in the open. There is a certain degree of confidentiality that people like. And as I mentioned in my presentation, that people are generally scared about managing money. And they want to use their trusted networks to learn, to figure out how they want to do things. So their family is important.
It's quite interesting to hear you say that you are moderating these platforms, yet you don't have a voice at the moment to answer back to any of the issues
that is correct.
That
Our
might
voice
be
is
raised.
Through the papers and through the
ideas
that we I wouldn't label it as traditional versus new media. It's how you deliver it and how you engage with them. So we are using the platforms that are available today to them to deliver content. And I think that is really important, and they are appreciating that enormously. So if you think about the downloads of the stuff that we are putting up there, that is also a form of engagement. Yes, we are not having a one-on-one dialogue, but it is definitely a step forward to where we were as an industry 5 years ago, where we just completely blocked out
Well, it's
that
interesting in terms of what we do. We launched a BBC World News Facebook page 18 months ago, and since then it's attracted 1.5 million
great.
users who are interacting with us. Obviously, as presenters, we all have Twitter accounts whereby it gives a very personal experience. People can comment on all kinds of things, some of them pleasant, some of them not so pleasant. But it does create a very different chain of communication. Stephen, in that respect, how are you implementing or utilizing new media in that?
I guess we have the advantage maybe of being a fairly new company. So although social media has just exploded over the last couple of years, I mean, it was we always used sort of the online communication methodology because it's a very efficient way of doing it, of course. And
can you give me specific examples?
Yeah, I think I talked about the fact that we had this absolute necessity to go out and tell people what we were anticipating doing because we actually wanted to make sure that there was a readily available market for the product, and that was completely word of web, if you like. I mean, it was without, and that was the days before social media, I guess. But certainly, it was very easy to spread that message sort of fairly widely, fairly quickly, and to get an immediate response. And we needed that response, which we could then either translate into a real market or not. But since then, I think one of the things that's which I love about the immediacy of social media is that we're having events happening on a fairly sort of regular basis, which are unique, and we're able to keep our community of not just a community of existing customers, but of future customers, just on the edge of their seats, hopefully. As the test flight happens, we can use Twitter to say, okay, it's in the air, the spaceship has been released, it's feathered, and it's landed.
So almost an online tracking device.
It is, yeah.
But let's be clear, particularly with your product, it almost sells itself, doesn't it? And it's appealing to a certain market of people that have a bigger wallet than perhaps some of us might do in this audience. And therefore, do you really need to be utilizing new media in the way that, say, Jacki and Sarajit do?
You might have. I might.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right that when you're doing something so unique, I mean, we have no competition to speak of, and there's a community out there of a certain size of people that have wanted to do this for a long time, and but we're still asking a lot from them, and they have families, they have kids, they have partners, and we need to make sure that we are continually sort of getting this message out that we're, the safety is our North Star, that we will not cut corners, that their loved ones will only fly to space when we're absolutely sure they're going to come back again. And
I think that's quite important.
It's very important.
Yeah.
And also, this is, I guess, a flagship for the Virgin brand. Virgin have put a lot of money into this company, and we have a responsibility to the wider Virgin Group to make sure that the magic of this particular project is really sort of is the halo effect is reaching out into the group.
Just very brief, just in a yes or no, if you could, for me. Are you all consumers? Are you all Facebook, Twitter users?
Yes.
Yes, but not personally. Not a personal account.
So you don't have a personal Facebook account? Is there a reason why, or?
No, not really.
No, just not embracing new media.
We can set that up for you.
Yeah, we can set it up, but okay. we certainly use it corporately. Yeah.
Right. Talking about that corporate use of new media and marketing, which you've all your domains, we're in a uncertain global economic climate at the moment. I think it was 3 days ago, the Eurozone was downgraded in terms of growth for next year, which many experts have said will have a direct impact on the global markets and indeed on the emerging markets as they are here in Asia. Given that, the accountants or the purse strings or the people that are totting up the costs in your businesses are often looking to media and marketing to slash those budgets first. It's perhaps widely known as the one that is to suffer first. How do you then ensure a continued investment in media and marketing, given the fact that people are tightening their purse strings? Sarajit?
HSBC is absolutely committed to marketing, and I don't think our management are looking to cutting back on marketing in any significant way. that would adversely affect the way we present our bank to the market.
Because banks have gone through a particularly bad time in terms of their image and the PR around them and their presence within the media world.
Absolutely, and I'm quite delighted to say that we are probably one of the few banks that have come out of this really well. And we are in that advantageous position where we can make a difference to society as a whole. And I think the top management have embraced that there is a need for us to communicate optimism. And you can't communicate optimism when you cut back on the things that you need to do to engage with customers. So from an HSBC perspective, I think the management are committed to supporting marketing going into the future.
Jackie?
My thought is that I think as an agency, we're working very hard on making sure that we're supporting the CMO and demonstrating the return on the marketing investment, not the cost of it, because it is, as we all know, very significant. So I am a firm believer that marketers, especially if they are treated with a seat at the table with the executive committee, can absolutely make the case that it's an investment. And that it's an investment that if you don't make, the brand will be eroded during this time. And I think that that's consistent with what you're saying. There's also plenty of examples now of where that has really helped. And we're seeing clients actually put more money into this market because although certainly we're seeing, economies eroding in really significant ways, the US being, probably one of the most challenged right now, the consumers haven't actually stopped spending consistently is what we've seen in a lot of our categories. So I'm still very optimistic that we will be able to keep the budgets. We haven't seen significant pullback yet.
But you've been in this business for a long time now. Have you seen signs of the point that I made about budgets being cut?
So historically, I would say that 2 years ago, though, 3 years ago, when we hit the blip in 2008-9, if we call that a blip, that was a pretty significant challenge. We actually didn't see marketers pull back at the same rate that they had prior. And I think that's just because of the learning that they had in prior recessions.
Stephen?
I mean, it's of course, it's the time absolutely not to pull back on marketing budgets. And,
but how do you justify that?
God, I mean, again, we're probably in a slightly unusual position, but I think if you look at the wider group, I mean, this is the time where you absolutely need to continue to to take care of your brand and the way that it's perceived, and and I think Virgin, for whatever reason, has had a good history of understanding. We often talked about the fact that Virgin's good at PR, whatever that means, and I think all it really means is that we understand that PR is about having a relationship with the public, and relationships with your customers are like relationships with your personal relationships, and you need to communicate during the difficult times probably more than you do during the easy times. And so maybe we understand that intuitively, and of course everybody is looking at budgets, but I think certainly as far as Virgin generally is concerned, we know that continuation of communication, particularly when people are feeling anxious and scared, and and that some of the certainties are becoming uncertain, that's the time when you really need to continue with it.
We're in an environment of immense information sharing. There is accessibility to all of you, whether it be personally or as a brand. How are you keeping up with the rapid expansion in terms of consumer behavior at the moment? Jackie?
Well, so the stuff I shared from the media lab that we have is one of the ways we keep up, because there's so much that comes at you. You really have to prioritize what those things are and why they matter, and determine at what point they're worth bringing to a client, because the clients count on us to be sort of a filter for what's important. So we rely on both the lab, the physical lab that we have, but also we have a virtual lab where people can upload and input their own thoughts, and then we sort of evaluate that and put it back out to the team. So
it is changing so much, though. How are you keeping across all of that and making a key decision about where you're going to channel your energies?
That's why we literally have a staff of people that are helping to curate that and evaluate it for us. And then the managing directors that run the businesses, because they know what's important to their clients, can begin to make the judgment based on what they are seeing. But I also think that all of us as individuals, and I say this to our managing directors all the time, you have to be a student. You can't just allow somebody else to tell you or come to conferences and soak all of this in. You have to be a student. You have to be on, you have to be watching, you have to be reading, you have to be observing. We all have to be doing it.
Get a Facebook account, Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to set him up with a Facebook account before he leaves.
I would endorse that. I think at the bank, customer insight and marketing planning is a core function. My own background is customer insight and marketing planning, and I would probably say my other colleagues also have a very strong insights background because we are a small community and we're trying to engage with bankers who in the past have basically engaged with, who are really in love with their product or their service, and that's what they understand. So customer centricity is really at the heart of what we marketers do in the bank.
So do you think you've got a good grasp on how, and I'm not specifically talking about your customers because they've already come to you.
Yes.
They're already in the net, if you like. But,
yes.
But customer behavior as a whole and how people are interacting with marketing messages.
Yes,
do you think you've got a good idea of what is happening out there?
Yes, I think I kind of echo what Jacki just said, that our engagement with academia is very strong. I was talking a little earlier in the morning to somebody and I was saying the understanding of consumer psychology is very, very important. And how consumers are engaging with new opportunities and all the things that are happening from a technological perspective is really important. But what is really key for us marketers is to think about people before we think about technology. Yes, technology is influencing people, but we really need to start at the root, which is about understanding people and what drives them and what motivates them. And then the technology will be the means to the end. Rather than starting by saying, isn't that fantastic technology? It's like a child in a candy shop. Yeah. You can have n number of technologies, but it really needs to inform people.
Stephen, just very briefly, if you could, because we're running out a bit of time, just about how you're staying across what potential customers are up to and how they're behaving and how they're interacting with the marketing world and perhaps potential consumers for you.
Yeah, I mean, we rely on the experts to a certain extent, but I think there is a danger that you get bombarded with so much stuff, and you almost feel that if you don't take everything, you're somehow being left behind, and which I don't think is the case, because every business has slightly sort of different requirements, and I guess again we're probably quite an unusual but also a useful place in that our customers we know very well, and there's a very small number of them compared with HSBC. We have 500 and we sort of know them all by name. And my sense of this is that we try to get driven by what they say. We've got a lot of smart people out there. A lot of them have made their money in this industry and know a lot more about it than us. And I think some of the best ideas that we've had have been directly fed to us by our customers. If it's fed to you by your customers, you know there's demand because that's where it's come from.
So a listening exercise. I know we've run out of time. I'm just wondering if we can open it up to the floor. We haven't got time to do that, not even for Twitter. I will take a look at your questions, I promise you, and maybe we can have a chat about that afterwards.
Yes, we can answer it later.
It's been great to be part of the event, and thank you very much for being here this morning and for listening to our panelists. Sarajit, Jacki, and Stephen, thank you very much, and thank you from me.
Thank you.